everyone, welcome back. I'm here with Bwipo, the substitute player from SOAS. How are you feeling about this victory?
This specific game was a little disappointing for me because I underperformed a little.
Yeah.
But all in all, I'm happy that we got the win on the board anyway. We still show that we're the best team in Europe. And I think our macro gameplay is really showing even with me.
How do you feel about your first steps in the LCS so far?
I think my first game was a really good showing.
Yeah.
I got a lot of attention in that game, and in this game much less. And because I got much less attention from mid-jungle, it really felt that I was choking a little. I didn't have full information on the enemy jungler, and I was misplaying my 1v1 matchup a bit too much. And that ended up in me dropping an early death, which made my lane much harder. But thanks to the team, they made sure I got back into the game.
Yeah, and still it was just your second game on stage. Last question for you. You had SOAS as a mentor. Has he been helpful to you so far?
Absolutely. I've learned a lot from SOAS. He's a very resourceful player. So whether he's behind or ahead, it really doesn't matter. He's always going to find a way to make sure that the game goes good, or at least create an opportunity so that it goes good. I haven't learned that from him yet, but that's what I'm looking forward to learning. And so far, it's the consistency. He always makes sure that he has impact in the game, no matter what happens, and that's something I'm looking to pick up from him.
Well, I hope you will be lucky enough to learn more from him in your future and in your whole career. Thank you very much for joining me today. And now let's get back to Shox, who was joined by Reckless on the analyst desk.
Thank you very much, Lol. No, we also have another Martin here, and that is the Fisho, but also Reckless joining us. Thank you for joining us. Congratulations. Great job.
Thank you so much.
Nice penta.
Well, despite not getting the penta, you're still player of the game. It was actually very close between you and Broxa, but you made it in the end. 48% of the votes.
Probably just because of the penta, no? Or like that.
Well, let's take a look at how it didn't happen. Now it's looking good.
Oh. What happens there?
The fight was really good. Like pretty much every time you play Astral, the fight is good if you are not the one getting hit, because lone fights is your place to be, you know. But I think I made the mistake of taking it out beforehand. Like I was kind of already calling the pentakill already when I got the second kill, I think. So when the Shogun ate me, my team already kind of left me and assumed that I had it. So I was kind of, yeah, I was running it a bit risky there.
Can't be too sad. You guys lost first place.
We did pretty much what we have practiced the entire week. Like we're putting a lot of emphasis on our early game because, as everyone could see, that was like our only big weakness, I would say. So we've been playing a lot of early game compositions, and we've tried to like get leads and work out how we should snowball them and not make mistakes along the way, so that we don't give these scaling compositions like you could see from Giants now get a chance to come back into the game. And I think we did decently well. I think we should have gotten more of an advantage than we did, but still like kind of good enough, I would say. Yeah,
I would say it was pretty clean, and definitely with the sub, Bwipo is also still learning the ropes. I think that was very good by you guys, but we're going to focus in on the next game on stage right now, the Unicorns of Love and G2 Esports. A lot on the line. Let's start with the Unicorns of Love, who've made playoffs every single time when they've been vying for playoffs, so every single split they were part of in history of the organization. But this could be the first time that they don't make it. This is a must-win game for them because they can still catch up with the 5 teams below Roccat in 5th place. So TLDR, a lot has to happen, but they just have to win. So Reckless, Sheepy had this team under his wings now, a lot of new faces. How do you think he's done so far with the squad?
So I actually have some inside information about Unicorns because I got the chance to see one of their scrims last year when I was in Korea together with Hylissang, and how they review and all that. So I know kind of what they focus on when they play the game. Like they're very micro-focused, judging from that one game and that one review. Maybe it's a small sample, but after talking with Hylissang as well, like, it kind of confirmed that they are just very, very focused on these small details within the game. And I think for this team, it's okay. Like they don't have the best individual players, but they have still kind of made the individual players shine in a way. But I think for this team, it would be much better if they were macro-focused, because I don't think they can outshine the top teams.
It's always interesting that Sheepy as a coach, Unicorns of Love as a team, have never been famous for their macro
play.
It's always been about fighting as much as possible, as often as possible, and doing it in very unique ways that most other teams wouldn't do. Like the amount of times you've sat on the analyst desk and watched the game with a pro player or a coach, and they've been like talking about, okay, here the normal play is this, and then out of nowhere, a fight has started. This Unicorns of Love team will do it slightly less, I feel like, but that's probably because Cold is the main shot caller, who's not that kind of player. But we still see Exile try and do it, so they're a little bit disconnected in that sense.
Well, there's two sides to that. On the one hand, you could say, well, Unicorns of Love have very good results, have had really good results historically in ELCS playoffs, but they've never won or went to Worlds. So there might be some question marks in the approach, but however it may be, they started off 1-8, and now they're still in playoff contention.
Yep.
So let's take a look at then the person that could make it happen for them. I just hear you mentioning Cold. How pivotal is he for this lineup in some very tough matches coming up for him?
Yeah, I feel like with the upcoming schedule, when they have G2, who's been losing a few games in a row now, Misfits, who lost earlier today as well, while it looks tough on paper, they can definitely do it. And the reason I highlight Cole specifically is because I look at their laners from Unicorns. I don't feel like any of the laners will get an advantage on their own, so they need a jungler around them. And he also is basically tasked with babysitting his mid laner, who tends to otherwise overextend and get ganked and fall behind.
Reckless, do you agree that Cold is a strong holder here, or is there another player that you can see making the difference for the Unicorns?
Whenever you play Unicorns, you kind of feel the presence of Cold much more than the other players, I would say. So I would agree that he's like the guy to make the change, but I also don't think he's like the best jungler in Europe either. So it's kind of hard to put that expectation on him, I would say. But I think if there's anyone that has to like carry a game, it's probably him.
Let's say he's working with what he's given, and he's doing pretty well so far, but they need to win, and they're up versus G2, the reigning champions. They are still fighting for that second place or in the running for that quarterfinal bye, but Vitality beat Splice, so G2 need a win to stay in that race. And Reckless, last week, 2 weeks before playoff, 3 weeks before playoffs, a 0-2 week from G2. What is your take on their form?
I think G2 have always been kind of the same team. Like, I know they were getting a couple of wins in the middle of the split, maybe early parts of the split, but I also thought that was because the meta was really good for them. Like, they were getting Tristana pretty much every game and GP pretty much every game, so they didn't really have to do much, really. They just had to kind of load up for the game, and then it would be good at some point, regardless of how their macro was or how their lanes were going or whatever. But now that teams are getting better, the meta is maybe not as good for them anymore. I feel like their weaknesses, which they've had from pretty much day one, are just showing more. It's not like they got worse, and it's not like they were super good in these 2 or 3 weeks. It was just they got like the champions that were good for them, and maybe enemy team draft was not that great. The teams were not that great, so they were just getting wins that maybe they didn't deserve as much.
Well, we discussed a lot in the office this week about what it is about G2, and the Fisher, you came out and said, well, maybe the issue is that they don't have a second carry. We always look at Perks. He's drawing a lot of attention. He's feeling the pressure to make these plays. We saw that just last week, and they don't really have anyone to rely on consistently. Is that the case?
Yeah, they have not managed to play around bot lane a single time, all split long. They relied a lot on the GP, as Reckless highlighted, for Wonder, because it allowed him to get ahead in the early game and still be a carry in the late game. And now he's mainly playing tanks, because that's the way the meta have gone, at least last patch.
There's Swain on this patch, though, so
yeah, that's the thing. There's
Swain.
I actually would think either something like Vladimir could also be a thing. I think you can try and get him. If Camille is open, that could be a choice. Gnar can also be played. Like, there are champions that Wonder could grab that are not these pure tanks, so he can be more of a carry, because I think they need him. So far, they've not been able to rely on the bot lane to be the ones who can actually
They
do
need
well.
Wonder. You and me both had G2 as a winner in this match in our predictions.
I got both, because I got the unicorns from the podcast. So
Yeah, you're playing both fields. That's not fair. Who do you think is going to win?
I think it's really draft dependent. Like, whoever gets the stronger AD carry in my eyes always wins, right? But
Okay.
for these teams, I would say maybe if Perks has a good game, then G2 should be able to take it home quite easily. But if Perks is not having a good game, then it could be tight. But at the same time, I feel like going back to the point about like them not having a second carry, I don't think it's Jarnan specifically being bad as a player. I think he just like cannot carry on this patch specifically because he doesn't play Caitlyn. And I feel like if Tristana is out, the only carry that can really like hard carry right now is Caitlyn. I think Sarah Khan is okay as well, but it's really hard to put your team in a position where you draft Sarah Khan, because then they probably like you have like a losing top lane or a losing mid lane and maybe not a priority jungler, so it's not worth the trade-off. So I would say the fact that he doesn't play Caitlyn is actually the biggest blow for them as a team, and not necessarily like a fact that he's just a bad player.
All right, I see. Well, a lot of questions. Let's see if they get answered in the picks and bans, and see if G2 can bounce back and take a crucial win in the fight for second place. We're going to head over to Medic and Vedius.
Thank you very much, Shox. I'm still Medic, he's still Vedius.
Hello
Or,
there.
according to you, I'm still Vedius and you're still Vedius.
I'm only joined by the wonderful versions of me.
The many wonderful versions of you. It's a shame we couldn't have one of those in this world. Unicorns up against G2 for our final game of the night. It's going to be a great one. I can sense it. G2 really need to come back fighting if they want to take that second spot. And Unicorns really need to win if they want to stay in contention for playoffs. Mathematically, they wouldn't be out if they lose, but they would rely on a lot of other people losing tomorrow.
Yes, right now they still want to keep fate within their control. And the one thing we can always say, Medic, is that when a unicorn fights a samurai, you're in for a bloodbath. I'm excited to see what both these teams look to draft. We had some excellent insight there from Reckless about Caitlyn and its value. And it's interesting when you look at both these AD carries, it doesn't simply just apply to that on Hyanan, but you also look at Samux, and Tristana and Ezreal are his two most played AD carries, and when he doesn't get Trist, he doesn't seem to be as confident. So you've got two AD carries that, when they aren't able to play their kind of comfort ADs, they struggle to have an impact on this current meta.
Well, there's the Caitlyn ban as well, so we'll have to see what AD carries we do end up with. Sion and Skarner removed by G2. Maybe they'll look towards Sivir as well to continue that S train going. Olaf, taken away by the Unicorns of Love, was buffed on this patch and was looking strong last week as well. Jankos actually had a very good game on it last week to kick us off against H2K. He then lost, but the start of the game was very good.
Swain clearly becoming a much higher priority ban for so many teams. Not entirely sure of his ban rate today, but he has been seen a lot more than he was last week. The 8.5 buffs clearly doing him a lot of favors. For G2, we still have a lot of strong bans left up and available. Looking at things like the Xayah Rakan, it's both Azir and Ryze available too.
No longer the Azir, and I'm always looking at perks for G2. We talked about him being the solo carry for the team. We talked about how good he is, and he really struggled last week in their games.
Yes, G2 are having a great game, but overall, Perks have made a couple of crucial decisions that really hurt his team last week, and they ended on a 0-2. This is one of the examples, and this is the other.
The second worst play in the EU LCS this split.
Yes, it was. Now, Perks, he's kind of the life and blood of this team. He is a large part of whether or not this team succeeds or fails. Now, looking at the draft available, I feel like G2 are setting themselves up for a Cassio in the middle lane. Wonder has been put back on a carry, which I'm sure many G2 fans are looking forward to see. But I feel like that you're expecting something like a Ryze to come out from the Unicorns of Love. They may now go for the Ryze plus the Rakan to guarantee the strong 2 versus 2 down in the bottom lane, giving G2 the option to go for the Cassio. Alternatively, Zac and Rakan could be another option. Give Cold a high ganking jungler that can have early game impact that also scales well.
Exile looks like he's going to go across towards the Galio instead. Hasn't actually played that at all this split. Will be his first game. Have to see how well he can pilot that in the mid lane, because apart from his Ryze and sometimes his Veigar, Exile struggled to really perform to expectations. There's the Rakan that you talked about though, Vedius, so that strong bot lane for the Unicorns is locked in, and an Ezreal for Hyanan, his third time this split.
So pretty much what we saw from the last game between Giants and Fnatic. Ezreal does fine into this lane matchup simply because of how much easier it is to avoid the all-in engage from the Rakan. You have that extra bit of mobility, you can farm from a safe range, and he has a big mid-game spike that you can look to play around, but as we've seen in Europe, many teams have struggled to do so. So G2 so far drafting themselves a winning top half of the map. They're going to try and give Perks the counter pick, which means that they'll be looking to get themselves something like an Alistar or a Braum to match up with the Ezreal. And Unicorns, they're actually going for mid lane bans rather than support. I feel it's because with the Galio already locked in, they want to try and give Exile the best matchup possible.
Definitely makes sense. Jarvan banned out by G2. It's Cold's most played champion and the one he has the most success on as well. So no surprises with that removal. Kha'Zix as well. Still that Zac available for Unicorns if they really want to go towards that. But you always have to wonder, Vedius, just exactly where Unicorns are going to go. They're so unpredictable at times. Sheepy has a wide champion pool from which he's willing to pull. And the Unicorns have been adept at using it wisely in the latter half of the split.
Now, Alistar would make sense in the Alistar would make sense if they were going for a little bit more of an aggressive bot lane, but because you're drafting with an Ezreal or something like a Braum just makes more sense because it offers more disengage, it helps you get through the laning phase a little bit easier, and you do have an all-in potential when you combine it with something like the Sejuani. The stacking of both their passives is extremely effective, you can keep a target locked up for an insane amount of time, and you allow for G2 to get yourself the counter pick to round things out. Even saying that, I say the counter pick, like they're just trying to save their mid because they already obviously know that Galio is in the middle.
And there's the Zac. We'll see what the counter pick for top lane White Knight is. A lot of Narn, a lot of Cho'Gath in his champion history, but Camille is a bit difficult one to deal with, and Wonder being back on a carry is a good sign for G2. Still that option of the Cassiopeia for Perks if he really wants to go down that route.
Cassio, Corki, Syndra are the 3 that I'm thinking of right now for Perks.
Ooh.
We've also got a Poppy coming in that will definitely be up in the top lane. I believe I saw the Poppy over in North America as an answer to the Camille. She has been brought out on Pro Play, and she did receive a small buff not too long ago. And we can talk a little bit more about her influence in the game, but one of the big mid laners that I naturally forgot is Talia. Strong pushing power into the Galio. Perks not really looking to win lane, more about trying to influence these side lanes. They can still get themselves a pretty solid early game lead, given that they should have a winning top matchup early on and a winning mid matchup, given the push that they should be able to generate.
So I just had a quick Google, Vedius. Last time we saw Poppy change was 8.4. A buff to her passive damage at early levels, and a buff to the heroic charge, the E damage as well. Doubled on slam. So if White Knight can get down and slam in that top lane, he gets a lot of extra damage from that E.
That would be great. I'm sure extra damage is always something that they're happy about. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about the intricacies once we get into the game, because there's a really cool interaction between Poppy and Camille. But for UOL, they've got an all-in team fight comp, Medic. We talked about how these fight games between the Unicorns and the Samurais will always be an exciting matchup. And for the Unicorns, they've gone for a triple tank comp. Samux needs to have early success, and he can get it when you're looking at this bottom lane and you're saying, dive, dive, dive. They want to shut down Hyanan and Wadid. They want to put them on the back foot. And I cannot wait to see if Unicorns can pull it off, or if G2 can successfully deny the early playmaking and roaming from Exile and Cole towards the bottom lane.
And deny the Unicorns what would almost be a perfect playoff run as well. You have to remember, they were 1-8. They won 5 games in a row, then I did a rousing speech and they lost. So this week I haven't done a speech, Vedius. And we'll just let the Unicorns play on no matter what. G2, on the other hand, do still have a lot of work to do themselves. They have not looked like the G2 of old. They have not looked like the former champions. And as much as their roster has changed insurmountably this split, you still have to expect that a team like G2 would be able to overcome that sort of concern.
So we got a bit of a brief pause, our first one of the day. I imagine it looks like a small issue with Wooded. Gonna get that sorted as quickly as possible. And as we jump into the pause, a reminder for our viewers at home about some of the standing situation. If you have only just joined us for our final game of the day, a lot has happened today. We've had a lot of upsets. The standings haven't really shifted that much, unfortunately. But what we do know is that 4 teams have now locked themselves in for playoffs. So if you don't want a spoiler, mute now. Our top 4 teams are Splice, Vitality, who have now recently joined, along with Fnatic
and
G2.
There we go. I was wondering why you didn't put Fnatic first, considering they are locked first.
It's very true.
We were just investigating a bug with home guards. Looks like that's all been resolved, so we are back on into the game. Onto the Summoner's Rift in just a second. It will come up on your screens. We have a slight preview of what is going on.
Now, before we get into any of this, observers...
Welcome back! So,
if you quickly flip over to Cold, he's running the pink Zac skin, and I know you're not going to understand this reference because he is... It's a Dragon Ball reference, and you've never seen it.
Oh, no, I know, I do, because I played the game.
This is the Majin Buu
skin. Majin Buu!
Why are you so excited?
Because I got the reference.
But what we do know about Majin Buu, he's really hard to kill. In the series, it took them like 3 attempts before they eventually beat him. So I'm looking at Cold, and the reason why we talk about Cold is because he's so pivotal to the success of this squad. I feel like that he is the linchpin that will determine whether or not UOL win or lose.
And like Majin Buu, he's very difficult to kill. He's got this passive on the Zac. When he ganks early on, when he has a high jungle proximity, Unicorns of Love are able to take the win. When he gets the team into that gold lead by getting early kills and assists, that's when the Unicorns win. So we really need to keep our eyes on him.
And it's exciting, right?
Dragon
Because
Ball.
We talked, good job, mate, good job. We talked a lot about how Perks, as an individual, is kind of also the linchpin for G2 and how he is like the superstar of the team, and when this new team was formed, he was the individual that everyone was looking at to kind of carry the team for a while, and he did that. He did such a great job, but last week, he did not have the best performance. We looked at the B-roll in Champion Select. He was kind of a hindrance to the team, unfortunately. He was the one that made 2 crucial plays that ended in G2 going 0-2. So G2's going to require him to go Super Saiyan in order to challenge the Majin Buu of Cold.
I'm deliberately watching Boku no Hero Academia so that we can talk about something at home, and you're going with Dragon Ball Z. I'm going to focus on League of Legends because that's something I know about. Have to look up towards this top lane, Vedius. You know, White Knight on the Poppy, something we really haven't seen that much. Into Wonders Camille.
So, the cool interaction about Poppy into Camille is largely coming from, let me get this right, the steadfast presence.
The W.
The W on the Poppy, and it basically denies dashes. Now, she used to be considered a counter to Zac Jungle, funnily enough, because every time he tried to engage, the steadfast presence would come up, immediately
Stop
hit.
right there.
Exactly that. Now, it does the same thing against Camille. Every time you try to dash in or dash away, the steadfast presence gets as a blocker, and it means it's almost impossible for the Camille to get the attack speed bonus on her E, which makes her trading in lane that much harder. Now, Perks, he's overextended.
Gonna get torn up. Cold here, stretching strike. Perks flashes away, but Cold with the flash. There's the dunk! And Cold gets first blood.
Majin Buu off to a good start. No Super Saiyan for Perks today as he is the first to drop. This is the kind of early pressure we wanted to be seeing from Cold. He gets first blood for Unicorns. This is the kind of start they need.
Great stuff from Unicorns. Cold with the early gank. That's exactly what he needed to do. And now you can see G2 have to try and get some vision, have to try and watch to see exactly where Cold is. We're trying to steal away the Scuttle Crab, but they weren't quite able to do it.
Great early start from the Unicorns of Love. Let's have a look back. Now, the positioning of Perks is really crucial here, because he's kind of just very forward in the lane. He wants to land the W onto Exile, and again, he pushes up to try and go for a bit of Q harass and get a ward into Raptors. He realizes too late that the Raptors are gone. The jungler is coming in from the side. Cold is level 4. Very easy gank setup, and that allows Unicorns of Love to get this very early lead.
You can see G2 still in the race for that second spot, but they really need to win today if they're going to be in it tomorrow. They play up against Vitality, which is an incredibly big game there as well. Unicorns in last place, 10th, sole position. But they have a way back in. A couple of wins pushes them right up towards that 5th, 6th spot where their race for playoffs continues. And to me, it would be one of the comebacks of the EULCS history, to be that far behind and somehow be able to work your way back into playoffs is an incredible story, but they do still have to win their games, and this is not an easy one for them.
But the great thing for UOL now is they can actually just keep repeat ganking mid lane, because the cleanse has been gone. You can see Cold already there, will get spotted out by a good ward, and Perks gonna instantly disengage, run away from that one, make sure that he will not give away any more kills to the Unicorns jungler.
And you can see Jankos realizes this as well. He's around that mid lane, he gets some vision down towards the bottom side river. Now actually might go all the way down to the bottom lane, because Totoro is a little bit overextended. Samix there as well, did misses the Winter Spike, but Jankos is going to come in with the flank. The knockback, the stun onto Totoro, the flash away. Stun isn't going to be enough from G2.
And there's the chain CC combo that we talked about, Braum plus Sejuani, forcing Totoro to flash away because that E from the Sej was about to lock him down, enable G2 to get themselves a potential kill down on the bot side. Unfortunately for them, they could not secure it. Good pressure though, could be a return gank option for them. Perks now level 6, Exile level 6 as well. This is where we start to think about where Unicorns of Love could look to utilize the Zac Galio combo.
Both top laners have used their teleport, so we won't see them having an impact in that next fight, but do have to look down towards that bottom lane. Where are we at? Samux and Hyeonim pretty even in terms of CS. Samux will be able to farm out this wave. The next back, maybe after that we'll start to see fights erupt, because Samux will be close to 6, Totoro will be almost there as well.
Okay, I thought Jankos was just going to see a flying Zac.
Over him,
that's what I thought was going to happen. He's like, I feel like there's a jungler in my jungle. Exile will be there to assist Cold as he tries to steal away some of the camps. And Wonder, once again, in the 1 versus 1. You can see that early laning phase, kind of what we expected. Camille, still a bit of a terror. Has a lot of harass with the leg sweep. It's not called leg sweep, is it? It's the
Tactical sweep.
Tactical sweep.
You were very close there, buddy.
Yes, and then Comet harassment comes out as well. So typically in the early laning phase, the Poppy will struggle a little bit, but you'll really start to see her impact in these later game fights.
The trade back here from Wonder onto White Knight. Have to see how this lane
Could go for an all-in. Of course, the other interaction I completely forgot about, the ulti from White Knight. One of the ways to counter the Camille ulti is to knock her out of the pit. One of the best ways to do that is with a ulti from White Knight. So every time Wonder tries to lock down a target, White Knight's going to be able to provide that aspect of safety and help disengage from what could have been a sticky situation.
Just in case anyone was still wondering, the pause we had at the start of the game was because Widid's home guard speed buff ended early. He paused to report it, but then he decided to unpause the game and continue. So League officials confirmed that the bug did appear, but Widid was happy to continue the game.
Good guy, Widid. Now, Jankos and Cold going for a bit of a back and forth. Cold now level 6. I want to see this bot lane dive, Unicorns of Love. They need to make it happen. They get the first blood, no significant gold lead because of the strong laning advantages that G2 have gotten in mid and top. But they need to make this play happen. It's very crucial for Samux and Toro approaching the level 6 duo. Going for the all-in, having that Galio jumping, getting these early kills for this composition to succeed.
They're just not quite being able to make the next step, Unicorns here.
Oh yeah,
Perks,
they still have time.
They do. Perks did have the flash down for a long time, and now it's back up, so probably not going to see an easy repeat gank towards the mid lane, but the game is still even. And we've talked a lot about Unicorns and the fact they want a team fight. G2 have the Camille, who is kind of this hybrid between a split pusher and a team fighter as the game progresses. I want to see how they utilize her in these mid to late portions of the match.
And G2 have quite a unique comp in the sense that it's not an exact team fight comp. I mean, they have the capacity to play the 1-3-1, but their true strength lies in their ability to kite. They work best when their enemy engages upon them, and then they're effectively able to just walk backwards. Use the movement speed that you gain from the terrain that Perks will create from his Q. You have the slows and the range that Hyanan will generate. And you basically just kite back, and you force the team to just try and engage onto you before you then find an opportunity to go for the hard engage where you can then look to win a fight. They can obviously spread out the map as well because you have Talia on one side lane, Wonder in the other. But their composition is a little harder to execute than UOL's. Literally roll face on keyboard, fight enemy team.
Press R, press R, press R.
Yeah, hope they die.
Sometimes that can work out. And something that has worked out for G2 in the past is Wonder being on these more carry-orientated picks. We saw him on the GP in the first few weeks. The last few weeks hasn't been as effective for him when he's been on tanks. You can see his damage per minute has fallen, his damage percentage has fallen, his gold percentage has fallen a little bit as well. So now on the Camille, expect him to have a little bit more of an impact.
And that's exactly the key word there, impact, because we heard on the analyst desk about how G2 kind of lacking a second carry and how the meta has made it difficult for Hyanan to step up into that role, and Wonder has kind of had to move away from that role given that tanks are the prevalent top lane champion. So without either individual really being able to step up, all the emphasis has come down to Perks, and he didn't have a great game last week. That's why G2 ended up going 0-2, but now that Wonder is playing the Camille, he is in an environment that suits him. We should see a little bit more from him.
Starting to see that setup down towards this bottom lane. Exile's just waiting in the wings, ready to take flight and join the fight if needed, but G2 back away, and first tower on the cards for the Unicorns. The wave is going to get cleared out by that True Shot Barrage. G2 play up towards the top side. Interestingly, Jankos has the blue buff here. I believe it was an accident. Does make it a bit more difficult for Perks to actually clear out waves in that mid lane.
It did look like that he took his own blue buff. Yeah, as you rightly said, could have just been a simple mistake. Regardless, Perk's not going to be too upset about it because he does have the tier, which is a wealth of mana, which is available to him. Always a good setup. UOL, though, getting themselves first tower of the game. Very much what you expect. G2 didn't fall to the early roaming of the Galio. Did respect the potential pressure. which is why that tower ends up going down. Now, do they choose to swap, or they look to keep their bot lane
White
towards
Knight's
the bot
going
side?
for it. Come on and slam, and welcome to the jam, Jankos. The hammer smash, the knock-up with the Keeper's Verdict as well. Wonder's on his way, and White Knight might have bitten off a little bit too much, but he takes a swipe out of Sejuani, and Wonder's now going to have to try and run away from this one because Cold is joining the fight, as is Exile. Wonder flashes, and White Knight shows what for in the top lane.
Well played there from White Knight. He gets the solo kill down onto Jankos. He doesn't quite get the blue buff, but it doesn't matter. He gets what he wants. Another kill in favor of the Unicorns of Love. They extend their gold lead to 1,000, and Unicorns so far off to a great early game.
Still CS lead for Wonder in the top lane, so he's not too dismayed by this turn of events, but you could see what White Knight was thinking right from the very start.
Now, the crucial thing here is, again, the steadfast presence. Jankos cannot use his Q because this is in the way, which means that he still chooses not to flash. He should have flashed earlier, but what ends up happening is he relies on the Q, then flash. White Knight predicts the Q coming out from Jankos. He flashes in the way, he blocks it, and then just as Jankos flashes, he ends up losing his life. Really good awareness, really great play from White Knight there. I imagine that's going to Reddit.
Yeah, you would assume so.
Really good play there. So that's holistically for the game. This is a really good start. We keep saying it, but it's so crucial for Unicorns because we talk so much about how when they get early leads, this team is so much stronger. A lot of it comes off the back of Cold, and he set up mid for success quite nicely. We saw a bit of a roam bot, which enabled UOL to get that early tower. And now we've seen a kill topside. So you've effectively got 3 lanes in a very good spot. This team fight comp getting into a position where they're really online and ready to go. And G2, will they be able to answer? Because remember, their comp, again, much harder to execute. Much more about hiding back, waiting for the enemy to engage, and then slowly kind of doing the back and forth dance.
And now Unicorns spent a little bit more time down towards the bottom lane to make sure they got that Mountain Drake. Expect to see them lane swap up towards the top side to have some pressure on towards the tower over there as well. White Knight hasn't backed yet, and actually Samus and Totoro will stay around, try to jump on towards Woodid. Totoro with the dance back, Hyun, and there, here's the TP in. Double TP actually coming out from the Unicorns, but the fight has reset. Behind them is Perks, the slam into the wall. Woodid has to flash away, but now Perks caught out by Cold. Exile there with the Winds of War is going to do a lot of work on Perks. And White Knight gets his second kill of the game.
Oh, the positioning of Perks was off once again. 0-2-0 for the star mid laner of G2. Both summoner spells were used and he still ends up falling. The fact that the Unicorns of Love are finding another kill in the early game continues to further snowball what will be such a strong composition once we reach that mid-game point.
This is so good for Unicorns. We wondered if they could step up against someone like G2. They have done exactly that.
So this is where things all start. Tianan interrupts the back of Samus and Totoro. Woodid, he's just trying to check the brush to clear it out. He sees an opportunity to go all in. Now keep your eyes on the minimap. What is Perks doing? He ults in from behind, tries to get a flank off. Oh, double TP means he's now the one on the flank. Oh, and he flashes in to try and get the stun onto Totoro. Yes, he's able to land it. He gets what he wants, but it makes it such an easy collapse for the Unicorns of Love as the rest of G2 were disengaging. The frustration on his face as he knows he messed up. Another kill goes in the favor of the Unicorns.
And a great early game for them as well. Impressive from Cold. Rifthold is going to get used towards mid, but Unicorns have 3 players here to try and deal with this. They sweep out the vision, and they will just stop the Herald in its tracks.
They're going to get no value from this. Look, the aggro is even swapped to the UOL members. That's it. 0 value.
Good stuff from Unicorns.
Wow, but rough stuff from the side of G2. Medic. Many fans expected G2 to kind of find their form, come back into it. Everyone expected that G2, okay, it was just a bad week. Perks, he played poorly, it happens, but it is now Perks that is being shut down once again. There's still the potential win condition of Wonder. He's doing well up in the top side, but White Knight 2-0-0, nearing the completion of his first item. The Iceborne Gauntlet is what you would imagine him to go for. And he's going to start winning out a couple of these skirmishes in the early game with a Sheen. You hit pretty hard on the Poppy. But things aren't over yet for G2. We don't want to sit there and completely count them out. It's just that I look at these comps and the ability to execute, and UOL just, it's a lot easier to execute.
Have to see if they are able to actually translate a strong early game into a even better mid game. I know there's a lot of fans here in the studio who would love to see them do that. A lot of fans of ties at home who would love to see them do that as well.
Yeah, because if UOL win here, they go 7-10, which is tied along with 4 other teams at 7-10, which are Giants, Roccat, H2K, Misfits, and Schalke. And then it effectively becomes a battle for 6th place as Roccat sits alone in 5th.
Roccat wasn't in that list. The 4 other teams were Giants, Schalke, H2K, and Misfits.
Yes.
You accidentally included Roccat.
Oh, my apologies, my apologies.
Sorry. That's okay. I'm sure we'll get the standings up in a second so people can see exactly what the difference is.
But we want to keep reminding you guys, because one of the big hashtags for today is every game counts. And you can see where Unicorns of Love are right now, 6-10. Getting a win would tie them up with the 4 teams above them.
And put them in playoff contention again.
Yes, yes it would. I believe they have another tough opponent tomorrow.
They play up against Misfits, who are debatably tough or debatably easy.
That's a good point.
At the moment, you never really know.
Oh my word, if Unicorns win today and they have to play against Misfits, that is so big. Wow. We have an exciting Week 9 here in the European LCS, and UOL currently sit in the lead. They have about a 1.4k advantage over G2. Baron spawning at about a minute 45. Now, I don't think that's going to be the immediate objective that both these teams play for. However, you have to imagine it's going to be a big, big point that will determine the game.
It definitely will. Just on the other side of this equation, if G2 lose today, they play Vitality tomorrow. If they lose that, and Roccat win, they would be tied in 4th place with Roccat. And the head-to-head is 1-1. Wow. So they would have to play a tiebreaker for that 4th
And that's
spot.
without... Wait, that is factoring in that Roccat win their game.
Yes.
I see. Okay, so you can see Europe a little complicated
It's so
right
close.
now.
And there's so many head-to-head scenarios that we have to work out as well. But we will continue to explain those as we go along.
Yes.
Nurse Quickshot did a very good job at the end of the last game.
He did indeed. Now, Mandrake is going to be spawning in about 20 seconds. UOL own the first one. And I'm sure that they will want to get themselves the second one. Looking at their Baron taking speed, not the fastest. They only have the AD carry really as the consistent damage dealer. Whereas G2, they have a surprisingly fast Baron taking team. Now, it's important that we recognize as well that G2 have been known throughout our regular season for getting strong early game leads. Last week versus H2K rather, they had a huge early game lead, which they ended up throwing. And now against Unicorns of Love, they've fallen behind, which is just very uncharacteristic of this G2 squad.
You can see as well, White Knight starting to win out those trades in the side lane. Trinity Force already completed on Wonder, but White Knight has a lot of damage with that Iceborne Gauntlet. This will be the second Mountain Drake for the Unicorns. You can see that G2 are trying to play up towards the top side of the map. Perks and Yankos are in position. The Weaver's Wall comes down as well, but after this Mountain Drake goes down, I'd like to look up at that top tower as well. G2 still unable to take it, even with all that extra time.
Yeah, it looks like G2 are doing their best to secure it. Is there a potential TP here?
Charm comes in, only onto a Did. He has to flash away. They don't even need to use the TP. They've got 3 men pushing mid.
UOL trying to answer the pressure from G2 towards the top side. But a good engage there from Totoro. Yep. He buys time for UOL. They do not lose a tower as of yet. I'm impressed with how UOL are playing this early game. We've seen the impact from Cold, very much what we wanted to see from the UOL squad. Exile holding his own against Pokes, even has a CS lead. Can't say that very often against Exile. And the whole team just really coming together. Samix and Totoro winning down in the bottom lane. And White Knight, yes, he's fallen behind in terms of farm, but 2 kills, very likely going to make up for that deficit.
Still only 1,000 gold between the two teams. After taking that bottom tower, Unicorns of Love haven't been able to get another turret in their favor. A lot of pressure has been enacted by G2 up towards that top lane, and you have to always respect the Weaver's Wall, which can separate a fight pretty well. However, we've yet to see Unicorns really go for this one.
It's true, you're
and
right.
I want to see it, because you've got Zeke's Convergence now, you've got a fully stacked Rod of Ages, you've got a Warmogs on Cold. Interestingly, won't activate the Warmogs passive with only the Cinderhulk and the Warmogs itself. You need a little bit extra health for that, and it depends on level as well.
It's very, very true. So wouldn't be surprised if we saw him go for something like a Locket of the Iron Star, maybe even a Knight's Vow to get that extra bit of HP underneath his belt. Two very viable options, along with Totoro going for the Zeeks down in the support. I always forget, is it Harbinger or Convergence?
Zeke's Convergence, I want to say.
Play-by-play, come on. I trusted you.
Sorry, I'll work it out in a second. Tim Becker here tweets at us, I really like the team comp from Unicorns of Love. Counterpick should be valued more highly in the hashtag EULCS, and he puts the hashtag every game counts, which it does, and engage's going to happen here. Exile in the midst of the fray, but the charm comes out, the stretching strike from the side. Look at this! This is the Wombo! And this is exactly what the Unicorns want to do. They pick off Woodin.
G2 are the team that go for the engage, and it ends in disaster. Now White Knight gonna knock Wonder away.
Goodbye!
He is out of there. Home run.
I wonder where he may have gone.
Well, it looks like he's going to go back towards the bottom lane. Another engage coming out from Cold. Ooh, does land on the Perks.
Stretching strike on the Perks. No flash, no cleanse, no hope at all. Unicorns with their 5th kill.
Oh, he's 0-3-0 now in the middle lane. He just tried to wave clear, and the crowd erupts in elation as the Baron is available. UOL, are they going to go for it?
You say they've got a slow Baron taking team. Well, Double Mountain will definitely help them with that if they want to force it. But it looks, for the moment, that they're going to take a breath.
Ooh.
They're going to slow it down. They'll say, we'll take a couple of kills, take the gold lead that we have. We can look to reset. Luden's now finished on the Galio as well.
Now, remember what we said about G2's comp. They typically don't want to be the ones engaging. They want to kite back. They want the enemy to engage upon them and to slowly work backwards while utilizing the poke and chip damage that they have on champions like the Talia and like the Ezreal. Unfortunately for them, they see Exile out of position. They think they can go all in. But Galio, he's still surprisingly tanky. I believe this is actually the end of the fight. Yes, so we're only going to catch the very end of it right here. This is just the cleanup kill onto Perks. The initial fight was just them going on to Exile. They think they caught a target out of position, but then he immediately goes for the re-engage. Samek's in a prime position to just dish out so much damage. And it ends up in such a one-sided teamfight victory in favor of Unicorns of Love. And we just come back to execution and their ability to play this comp.
We saw the tweet earlier from Mr. Tim Becker, I believe it was. Make sure you're tweeting at us as well with the hashtag every game counts. Each of the bottom 6 teams can still make it into playoffs.
Yes.
There's only 2 spots in contention. And everyone has the chance, and Unicorns are trying to solidify their shot for it with a win here over G2. Perks gonna pop down the Weaver's wall. Once again, we've seen him struggling in this game. Hasn't been the standout performer for G2 that we'd expect. Across towards the side, Wonder's caught out, and he has to flash. Why not pops a keeper's verdict through the goalposts? And here comes the slam. They're going to knock up on towards Woodid. The charm, the double charm in the backline. Here's the hero's entrance, and the ground erupts as Exile jumps in to G2, and G2 collapse under the weight of Galio.
That is what we call a wombo combo. Unicorns of Love dismantle G2 Esports. 2 for 0 and a Baron in their eyes.
Double Mountain, double kill, and they're looking for their Baron as well. G2 only have a tower to their name. Unicorns of Love are absolutely routing them in this game. Yankos can't get close. The Baron's going down. 25 minutes in, the Unicorns look incredible.
Exquisite play from the Unicorns of Love. Everybody doubted them. I was one of them. I thought G2 would return to form, but UOL are playing so beautifully. You'd think that they were just going to go on to what did, but no. The Totoro into the cold follow-up, into the Exile ulti was beautiful. Fantastic coordination from this Unicorns of Love squad. Going back to their old roots, run it down mid, look for a team fight. It works every time.
And look at the damage coming out from Exile as well. The double knock-up, the Ludens, the fully stacked Rod of Ages. That's exactly what you can do on this Galio. Now a 3,000 gold lead for the Unicorns. A Baron buff to push in with. Question becomes, how much can they take off this Baron buff? This G2 will try and stop them in their tracks. They do have a good split they can do. Of course, the Galio with the TPM, with the Hero's Entrance on its way back up.
UOL, they already set up the push in mid. Yana is actually towards the top side. It's going to take him a while to join the rest of his team, and I feel like UOL are strong enough that they could just go for a hard dive. They're going to play the safe route for now. They're going to take bot tower and mids. Exile going to go back and catch the top wave because his TP is coming off cooldown. UOL, do they have a banner of command anywhere? No. Decided not to pick that one up. UOL, for now, will just take the 2 towers. 2 minutes still left on the Baron buff.
They do still have that Zeke's Convergence, though, Vedios.
There we are.
can always help you out in a fight. Third mountain on the cards for the Unicorns. Nothing that G2 can really do to answer this at all. The only hope for G2 remains in their carry top laner Wonder. He's 80 CS up. He's yet to die. He's yet to have any influence in anything in this game, really. But he's been farming up a Storm. Has the Trinity Force, has the Sterex Gauge.
But how does he impact this game? The Poppy seems to be the prime counterpick to Camille. And every time Wonder jumps in, whoop, bops straight out. Wonder is there, primed and ready to get Wonder out of any sort of situation that would enable him to get a bunch of kills onto the UOL team. So I feel like UOL's draft, it's a solid, just easy to play draft. And G2, by putting Kianon on the Ezreal, we talked about his kind of limited champion pool. He wanted a little bit more mobility against things like the Galio, the Zyra Khan he was concerned about as well. And then the Talia, they wanted push, so they had push in mid, push in bot, but they weren't ever able to utilize it. They were so afraid of this Galio combo that they ended up losing bot tower, they ended up getting caught out multiple times, and UOL have just been slowly and steadily building up these leads, and now G2 look to answer.
Weaver's Wall, they're just trying to get all in on Exile, stretch and strike from the side as well, but G2 will secure their first kill of the game. Exile a little bit out of position from the rest of his team.
Exactly that, and G2 successfully punished. So props to G2 there, finding a small alleviation of the pressure from the Baron buff. Getting a kill onto Exile, definitely going to be an advantage for them, and it will be G2's first kill on the board. I'm going to take a gamble and say that this is G2's latest first kill of the split.
Let me check with our stats team.
He's going to check with the stats team right now, just confirm that statistic, as I so boldly claimed it without confirming it myself.
The thing is, sometimes it takes a little while to check.
Of course, so they will hit us up a little later on as G2 look to reclaim a little bit more control around the Baron area. That will be the next key objective, as UOL weren't able to break into the base. There are no inhibitors down, so they're going to need that in order to secure a win over G2.
One side we have the Wombo combo, on the other side we have the Kiting Kings, but G2 have been unable to kite up until now.
Yeah, so the thing is, when you engage onto the Galio, it's the same principle as engaging onto a Shen. He's not able to use his ultimate, which is his greatest feat, and as a result, it meant that the TP was even used there from White Knight, and it's setting up nicely for G2 to buy a little bit more time.
See, Master Cannon here says Unicorns and Rockets go through to playoffs. They show the most confidence in the face of a great challenge, and that is what matters most right now.
Oza, you can hear him say that
every game counts.
Voice, can't you?
I'm not going to try.
Don't try.
I'm not going to try.
No. But you know that if it's said with his bravado, that it would come across. You'd be inspired by that. And Unicorns definitely playing with a lot of confidence, also patiently. They're not being reckless with their plays.
No, he plays for Fnatic.
I don't know how to follow that one.
Sorry, it was not a good one.
You hurt my pride with that joke.
Schalke.
So I knew it. I know. God damn it.
Okay, let's get back to this game, because Unicorns looking like such a good position.
Yes.
7-1 up. It's the Brazilian scoreline, as I like to call it. 4,000 gold the difference between these two teams. Thank you. But...
Oh, look, collapse onto Wonder. You see Perks is here to throw out the wall should his top laner need it, and he will be able to get out to safety. Good response there from the rest of G2 to keep Wonder alive, but I think you'll want to go for it anyway.
Yeah, they're just going to chase. They don't care. They've got Hero's Entrance. Glacial Fish is going to land, but Cold is here. The Weaver's Wall is going to separate the team, and Cold will just back away. They get an ultimate out for it. 2, in fact, with the Glacial Prison.
And the Baron spawns in about 1:30, so G2 will have those ultis back by the time that comes around, so they're just going to keep the waves pushed up. Would love to see a little bit more vision investment now towards the top side from the Unicorns of Love. With everything coming together. Looking across the board, I believe that it will be a death cap third for Exile. The Rabadons was buffed on patch 8.4. I believe. I mean, it was actually buffed quite a while ago. What am I talking about?
But they put a 5% buff on the AP it buffs you up. From 35 to 40%.
But they also buffed the flat AP, I believe, too. So that's why we've been seeing it a lot more often as a third item, because now it's just more efficient to buy. And you're seeing less Void Staffs third. So definitely makes a lot of mid laners happy. You burst opposition really hard. And you're going to see that from Exile with this build. Definitely the full one-shot build. And now the fact that he's picked himself up a Fiendish Codex could round things out with either a Zhonya's or the Banshees, depending on what he's feeling. Maybe he needs a bit of magic resistance. Maybe he wants a bit of armor. The choice is his. Now Wonder, hanging around the bot lane, continuing on with the push. White Knight, we imagine, will head towards that side of the map. Exile will look to push up top. Baron, 20 seconds. Remember that UOL do not have the fastest Baron-taking team. Therefore, ideally, they're going to want to look for a pick opportunity.
So, Vedios.
Yes.
Sadly, we can't get the exact statistics.
So we can assume that I am correct.
We can assume you're correct because I found the most recent game in which they only got 1 kill. That was against Splice, and that was at the 23-minute mark. So I think you're correct. I don't like saying it, but I think you are. Now, Perks is down towards the bottom side, and the Baron's being started up here by Unicorns of Love. Remember, they have a triple mountain, Vedius. This is going to go down very quickly. They're just going to jump across the wall. Totoro there as well. The charm, here's the hero's entrance as well. The knock back. We're dead. Hyanan actually on the backline here. Can catch up to Samox. Jump in by Totoro. G2 fighting down towards the bottom side. Unicorns of Love trying to chase onto Hyanan. But TP comes in. Weaver's well used as well, and now Wonder's on the wrong side of this fight. White Knight's still alive. The knockback with the slam. Exile gets the taunt off. Minion's still pushing in, but Wonder's so low. Unicorn's in. Wonder gets the kill. Perks just dancing around this tower perfectly. Wonder gets the knockback double kill, and G2 somehow find a glimpse of hope. They're going to start up the Baron as well. Woodid almost dies to it, and now Totoro has to try and stop it. Holds on his way.
They're being split across the entire... Oh, UOL, they're just being spread across the map. They don't know where to go right now. G2 going full on the gas. That Baron is extremely low.
So let's have a look at this. The Baron's still aggroed by Jankos. Cold can look for the steal, but Camille is nearby. Wonder the jump in. 2,000 HP. Totoro jumping onto Wonder. Cold's not going to leap in. The Baron's going to get secured by G2. And somehow they just outplay Unicorns across the map.
Oh my word. G2, that was spectacular. They send the 2 carries down bot to try and get the kill onto White Knight. They win out on the 2 versus 2. Then, while that whole 2v2 is going on, UOL try to scramble back, they try to defend their base, and G2 are just like, great, let's do the Baron, let's start it off. We have 3 members, we should have enough damage. And now they've secured it for themselves, Medic. They've actually gotten themselves back into a gold lead. This is crazy. So Perks, he's sitting on a ward. UOL know exactly what's going on. That's why they started off the Baron. So what he does... Oh, Wonder able to dodge out from the knockup from White Knight. The TP comes in and you're thinking, okay, this is fine now. UOL, they should be able to hold on to this, but... Wonder showing his prowess when he gets given a carry. Gets a bit of lifesteal back, flashes in, instant execute. White Knight can't survive for that much longer. My word, Wonder. We talked about how he could still be a carry for the team.
Oh,
And
that's so
gets away with his life as well. G2 keep their hopes alive.
still looking for that second place. Fighting against Splice and Vitality, and Unicorns can maybe see their hopes drifting away a little bit. As we said, it's not mathematically impossible for them to make playoffs if they lose this game, but it's darn well difficult. The Weaver's Walk and Perk will lock Cold away. Baron buff remains for 2 minutes here for G2. Gold perfectly even in this game.
As a reminder, G2 have secured themselves a spot in playoffs. The position in that playoff is yet to be determined. The outcome of this match will influence that heavily. And Wonder is definitely stepping up to be the second carry of this team. The difference in this man between when he plays a tank and a carry is phenomenal. And right now, he could be the sole reason that G2 is able to come back. They hold on to a 1,000 gold lead right now. They have the Baron buff. And the pressure continues to mount as UOL struggle to deal with the relentless pursuit from G2.
A little while ago we said Wonder is scaling but hadn't really got to the point where he could absolutely destroy a fight. What influence would he have? Well, now he's 150 farm ahead of White Knight, and he's starting to make these big plays that we expect from him when he is on a carry. 430 farm at the 35-minute mark is impressive, and the outplays he's making are even more so. Ocean Drake on the cards.
Yeah,
Not a fourth mountain.
Probably not going to be the highest of priority. UOL will just... I don't even know if they can grab it, because... I mean, G2 have a Baron, so you need to be a little careful. GA on Wonder as well.
Doesn't feel like G2 have really accelerated too much with this Baron. They've slowed the game down, they got a tower, but they haven't really exploded to life yet.
I mean, they still have to be patient. Remember that this comp now is very much about, okay, let's just rely on Wonder in a side lane. Clearly, he can be a big carry. That's not a concern for us. And we'll just use our kite composition to just buy time, make it difficult for UOL to engage. And if they do, we can just use the slows and poke and chip damage that we have in our kit to make it difficult for UOL to continue with the initiation, whereas UOL are just waiting for that big fight. They need a good Zac engage. They need the Totoro ulti to land onto crucial targets. And they want to try and force G2 to group up. Baron buff will be wearing out. UOL secure themselves another Drake. And Elder will be a big deal for them. And as that will be the next big objective for both these... Well, Baron will spawn before that, naturally. But it's so still very, very close. Execution is what it's going to be about. But you can't help but feel that after that one big outplay from G2, that they're feeling a lot more confident. They feel like they've regained some of the essence that G2 has been known for so long.
Totoro does still have that flash engage, though. It's something we've seen him use incredibly effectively thus far. You get the hero's entrance on him, you get cold jumping in. Unicorns of Love still have this more simple team fight that they can utilize and have shown us that they know exactly what to do with. So it's a possibility. And Elder Drake, always an option for them as well. For 3,500 Baron, gold Baron power play for G2, they're about 2,000 gold ahead. At this point, that's more like pocket change, you know? That's the sort of thing you pay for a flapjack and some french fries.
Exactly that.
It's not really that much.
A lot of champions nearing that full build status, especially Hyanin on the Ezreal. He's very, very, very strong right now. But getting through tanks can always be a bit of a challenge for him. We'll see how things play out as oh, wow! Ulti used there from the Unicorns to try and find a pick onto Perks. He will be forced to flash. One summoner spell down, but still. He now will just have to play a little bit safer, won't push out the lane as much. Getting that ability out could mean the go signal for G2.
It's a possibility, but not definitely the case. We'll have to see if they do decide to do something. Still waiting on Wonder just to push in these side lanes. Now has a QSS for himself to try and stop any lockdown potential that the Unicorns may have. You've got Cleanse on Perks as well for him to get away from any of these fights.
Now we have just been updated that if G2 wins this game, the Unicorns of Love can be locked out of playoffs by other teams before they play their game versus Misfits tomorrow.
Basically, they rely on every other team above them losing. Any team that's at 7 and 9 has to lose for the Unicorns to be able to make playoffs.
Right.
If they lose this game.
Rough.
Yep.
So that's why this win is so important. That's why the tension is so high right now. Baron in 1 minute. I want to say that that'll be the decider, but I don't think it will be. I actually think, can UOL stop Wonder and Perks in a side lane? Because that will be the true decider. If they can somehow shut him down and prevent him from being a split push threat, then Unicorns of Love can grab the Baron, they can be the ones to siege, they can be the ones to end the game. Whereas G2, they just have to deny that Baron from UOL at all costs. They have to keep Wonder in a side lane.
It's the same play again here, Vedius.
Exactly the same. Here we are. Let's see. Look at the members of UOL hanging around the middle lane. Exile looking for an opportunity to ult.
White Knight needs to be very cautious as to how far he pushes forward. The Weaver's Wall comes out to try and split out the jungle. See it extend across that mini-map. And now Unicorns will push towards the mid lane once again. Baron up 17 seconds. The playoff hopes of Unicorns pretty much ride on these next couple of fights.
It's in their hands. It's all about the execution. Unicorns have been in this situation multiple times throughout the split. Now, look at the bottom lane. Look at the bottom lane.
Exile's going bot. The tower's going to fall, but the last time this did not work out for Unicorns of Love. Wonder jumps in. The Hexagolden Maiden is going to lock Exile in place. He pops the stopwatch, trying to jump away. The flash. Wonder's with the chase. The knockback from White Knight somehow keeps his mid laner alive. And the Unicorns are fighting on two fronts at the moment because there's a fight in the jungle of G2. Hyanin doing a lot of damage from the side with those Mystic shots, and the Unicorns have to retreat. Their inhibitor's going to fall down in that bottom lane. Unicorns did not find the fight they wanted.
G2 winning the skirmish down in the bottom lane and the skirmish around the Baron. But look at how quickly this is going down. Jankos has no idea.
They're going to get the Baron. We said that wasn't where the fight would be decided, but the Unicorns will take it. On all 5 players, they get that Baron buff.
This is unbelievable. Wow. G2, they play towards their win condition, utilizing Perks and Wonder off in the side lane, getting themselves an inhibitor. But now the Baron is up. Do they have a Baron? No, of course. After the nerfs, less prevalent, but still has an influence. Look at the damage from Wonder this game. My word.
Look at the damage from Perks as well. He has really struggled. Yes, he's had a bit of an influence with those Weaver's Walls, but he's not the solo carry that perhaps we'd expected him to be throughout the course of this split.
You are quite right, but maybe he still has an opportunity to be that as UOL begin the siege with the Baron buff. Mid and bot are where their eyes lie. They want to push in towards the super minion wave so that it's not a threat. But look at Wonder in the top. All G2 need to do is wave clear and stall. He has his eyes set on another inhibitor. A minion wave is stacking up in the top wave for him to utilize. G2 have not given up on this game yet, and they are fighting tooth and nail to prevent Unicorns of Love from standing a chance in playoff.
Every game counts, every moment counts, every team fight counts, every single flash counts, and when you come down to this, this is where you decide your fate. Unicorns and G2 both have their lives in their own hands, and the Unicorns are going to look to try and collapse on towards Wonder. He gets caught out with a stretching strike. Cold there. Wonder still has the flash, can jump across the wall, attack sweep as well. Yanko's coming in from that top side. Cold may be a tank yet to die still, but he is shredded. Toto is going to jump in. The charm connects onto Yankos. They're just looking for a kill somewhere. We're there as well. Here's entrance. Here's Wonder. Look at the backline. Samus has to put the feather flying. And there's the knockback. Keeper's verdict says G2 are not allowed to fight this fight anymore. Cold so low into the passive. Wonder jumps in again. Samus cannot get in this fight, and G2 can do so much work. But the TP is going to join him. A triple taunt, but the rest of the Unicorns are just not there. Totoro falls. Exile pops the stopwatch once again. But there is no escaping G2.
G2 win a huge team fight against the Unicorns of Love. Elder Drake is live, and they have their eyes set on it. Fantastic team fighting from the G2 squad. The execution was off from the Unicorns of Love, and G2 are now in full control of this game.
Superlative stuff from Wonder as well. You had to track him in the fight, jumping to the back line, re-engaging, disengaging, jumping back in. He forced Samus totally out of that fight. Didn't have an impact at all. And now G2, Elder Drake. Yes, they've got no Drakes behind them, but stopping Unicorns getting that is so impactful for them, and they can push in this 4-on-1 configuration.
Wonder, yes, pushes the super minions in towards the bottom lane. Yankos keeps that last minion alive. Death time is still on Exile. And here comes the Weaver's Ward to try and zone Unicorns away. Will G2 go for another engage, or will they just focus the tower?
Knock back onto White Knight. The tower is going to fall, and G2 disengage. They now have a 9,000 gold lead as we come up towards that 45-minute mark. But across the board, pretty much full builds. Both AD carries have those 6 items. And here we'll see the fight once again.
Now, Cold is still regenerating health, but the target calls here for UOL are what's off. They initially say, let's go on to Perks. The Galio ult comes in, but there's no follow-up as Cold ulties and drags Perks back in. The Wombo combo does not happen because they don't want to shut down Yankos at the start of the fight. And even though Wonder is overextended on the backline, UOL decide to knock him out rather than focus him down. G2, yes, they spread apart. They utilize the high mobility of their composition to just slowly pick apart the Unicorns of Love. But you can see that in this high tense environment, Unicorns are struggling to make this composition work.
Now, they didn't break the second inhibitor. They got the tower, they haven't taken the inhib. Bot lane inhib will respawn relatively soon as well. First Elder Dragon buff only remains for a minute and a half, so we'll be looking to fall off pretty soon. Have to wait for that inhib in the bottom lane. Bart Wigger, every game counts, question mark, more like every second counts. This Unicorns of Love versus G2 game just became hype.
We said at the start of the game, Medic, when Unicorns and Samurais meet on the Rift, you are guaranteed an exciting matchup regardless of the standings. These two have been butting heads for so long in the European LCS. And right now, it looks like G2 are the ones in control. That doesn't mean Unicorns have not given them a good fight. That doesn't mean Unicorns are out just yet. They're looking for that one big Wombo combo. Can they find it? As White Knight posturing for an engage.
Third inhibitor tower falls. Wonder still there, has the GA. Have to kill him twice, and Unicorns have yet to manage to do it even once in this game. Baron power play comes out. I'm still positive for Unicorns, but perhaps not as positive as they would have wanted to be as they have been forced back into their base. Have to see where the key points are in this next fight. You're looking at Wonder, you're looking at Perks and Hyanan trying to keep themselves alive on the backline, and then on the side of Unicorns, really, Samus and Exile are your key damage dealers.
That is definitely true, Medic. If UOL can just pull off the Wombo combo onto one or two of the carries, ideally they want to shut down Wonder, but he has the GA. I mean, he's got everything, look at that. the Mercurial Scimitar. He's got the stacks as well. The GA, like, he's so hard to kill. And he does so much damage too. It's the full tank, the triple tank, or double tank comp, I should say, of Cold and White Knight, because Exile's definitely not gone tanky.
Yeah, I think a Void Staff, Rod of Ages, Zhonya's, Luden's, and a Rabadon's Death Cap implies he's not that tanky.
Yeah.
Although he's got the Mercury Treads, Vedius.
Yeah, so he's got that going for him, I guess. But it's so hard, so tense. Baron, I believe this is our third Baron of the game.
It is.
And I'm not going to say anymore, because it's a buzzword. It will not decide the game. It's going to be a big point of contention for sure, it always is. But I feel like G2 are not actually that interested in the Baron. They just want to keep playing the 1-3-1. It gets a lot harder when you have to kind of group up in the base, but G2 keeping this UOL lineup spread apart is definitely the way they want to just keep things now. They do not want to group up in a Baron pit and allow UOL to get the one-more combo off.
It's the same strategy again from G2. Perks and Wonder down towards that bottom lane. The two carries for the team are going to push in. Exile comes to answer first this time. Here's White Knight backing away as well. Baron is available. Remember, triple mountain on the Unicorns. They did this very quickly last time. This time they're just going to try and look for a fight as Jankos sweeps away. Baron started. Down towards the bottom lane, there's a fight going on as well. Inhibitor almost falls, Wonder there, but let's look at this Baron for the time being, because Jankos going to jump in onto Samus to re-engage onto Within. The jump, Inhibitor falls, the Baron's still alive. Cold jumps up, jumps down. Kiana's still alive in this backline. Samus has a lot of feathers out though, and he brings them back. Exile does, Perks gets him. Unicorns looking for something, because there's nothing going right for them anywhere on the map at all. G2 win the fight at Baron, they win the fight at the Inhibitor, and they're looking to win the game.
G2 come out huge after shutting down the Unicorns of Love. Perks loses his life, but this time it's worth it as they have four members strong and are looking to end the game.
Wonder is an absolute monster on this Camille, and G2 have played this game to perfection at the end. Looked difficult for them, they'll get the ace at the end, but they're going to go through these Nexus Towers like butter. G2 keeping their hopes alive in the race for second place with this win over the Unicorns.
Oh, it was a hard-fought battle for G2. The early game was abysmal as Unicorns found pick after fight after objective. But G2 stayed strong. And it all came down to Wonder. If you guys at home do not vote for Wonder as player of the game, you are doing something wrong, because it was all that man. He was the reason why G2 were able to come out on top. He is the second carry, and you can just see the difference that is made when he plays the carry versus the tank.
What a job from Wonder, and you can see the Unicorns of Love on the other side. Cold getting a lot of hugs. He played the early game so well. The Unicorns played their wombo combo so well. It just weren't quite able to make those connections in the later portion of the game.
Whew, that was a great game. Very insane.
We've had some incredible games today, because every game counts, Vedius, and that's what makes it so exciting and exhilarating and enthralling and all of the other words that start with E.
So G2 are still in contention for that playoff bye. Unicorns of Love no longer have control over their own fate. A loss right now does mean that they may be knocked out of playoffs before they even get to play against Misfits. And you can see the disappointment. It was so close. They had such a good lead, and they fought their heart out. But unfortunately, right at the end, they could not pull it off. Congratulations for G2. Still some aspects of concern. Perks definitely struggled, got shut down quite a lot. But man, that was just overall a great game to watch.
Oh, it definitely was. And it means we have that three-way tie in second place at the moment. Head-to-heads may determine it, but at the moment, Splice, Vitality, and G2 all sit at 10 and 7. And the NA LCS Academy has started, so if you're interested in our friends across the pond, check out twitch.tv/NALCS for CLG Academy versus Optic Academy.
I think I even hear them playing. Those were noises. Yeah.
In tonight's edition of the EU LCS post-game lobby, we'll get a look at Reckless's all-pro team. Here's some shocking statements and more. Take it away, guys.
everyone, to the LCS post-game lobby after a fantastic introduction by Medic. I am Shox, and I am joined here by the Fisho, by Amazing, and by Reckless. I'm excited for this one. This seems like a good lineup.
You went downhill there on the names. Started high, and then it dropped a little bit, and then crashed over there somewhere.
Yeah, well, we just saw the last game of the day. Every game has been crazy, but I do want to talk about Unicorns of Love G2 just a little bit. Somehow G2 won. You're always talking about the right way that people win games. You were mad that Vitality, the way they did it.
They stole that game.
So what about this G2 win, the Fisho?
I mean, they didn't win the perfect game, that's for sure. I thought they lost. I thought this was it, but then Wonder stepped up, and this is why he's the all-pro top laner for me.
All right, well, we'll see later. Reckless is also going to tell us his all-pro list. Reckless, we saw an Ezreal for Yarnan. There's been a lot of discussion in the community also about Ezreal, and people don't seem to like it. And obviously, you need to be a pretty good player. You said before, well, if you don't get hit in the fight and you can survive, then obviously you can dish out the damage, but you need to be in it for a long time. But what do you make of Ezreal as a competitive pick in Europe?
I think for most teams, it's probably not that great because most teams are not good enough to play the champion to begin with. So I would not suggest this if you are pretty much any team that's not ourselves, maybe. I mean, I think our early game is not that great yet either, so I would not suggest this for us either. Like, if I were to play a semifinals right now, for example, I would never play Astral, ever. Because I think we just can't end the game quick enough before the enemy team gets a chance to carry with whatever hyper carry they have going. But I think if you have like a pretty good early game, then Astro is a really strong champion. He wins pretty much every lane, is most likely the only AD carry I would say that can reliably lane into Sarah Khan. So I think that's why they picked it in this case, for example. They just wanted a secure.
They're saying Yarnan is really good because even in that kind of a game, he could use the Ezreal to win.
Well, I would say that Samux is not really bad, but I would say Samux is not good enough
Maybe not in this game.
to carry. Like, if you put pretty much like 50% of the bot lanes in Europe on Sarah Khan, they will do a lot more than Samux and Totora did this game. So I was a bit disappointed because I felt like Unicorns, I mean, everyone could see it, right? They had like the biggest lead we have seen in a long time, and they had like all the vision, and they had the Baron setup and everything, and then they just throw it out the window like for no real reason. And it wasn't like G2 were playing good either as a team. They were just better individually, and I think that's kind of sad in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it is sad for the Unicorns of Love, as I think we're still getting some sounds of the game.
I was about to say, am I the only one who's going crazy? Am I hearing
no,
I don't hear anything, it's fine.
Oh, okay, the atmosphere of the game.
Yeah,
So, Maurice, when you talk about teams that are that need to grab their playoff spot, this is heartbreaking for Unicorns of Love, but they could say that they let this game at least slip through their hands.
Yeah, and I think that's been the story for Unicorns in a lot of games this split, where they actually get early leads, they actually look really good, and then suddenly look extremely bad. And that transition is just really weird, because for me, when I think about it, like, especially from a jungle perspective, I obviously see a lot of similarities to my last split in Origin, like to Cold, where you're fighting for survival, and there's just nothing you can do about it, and just steadily going down, at some point you just lose out, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Well, to see exactly where they are in the playoff race, and for more on the race for playoffs in the final week, let's head over to Medic and our standings checkup.
Thank you very much, Shox. What a day we have had. What games we have had. The match of the week, Splice versus Vitality, and then G2 versus Unicorns of Love. Incredible action across the board. Let's have a look at exactly where everyone stands at the end of today in Medic's playoff checkup. Thankfully, I'm not quick shot, so that's always a good thing. Important things at the top of the table. We have 4 teams locked into playoffs, but only 1 team locked into their position. Fnatic at the top, locked in #1, and their win today only helps solidify that position. G2, Splice, and Vitality are all vying for that second place. And you have to remember how close that is, because Vitality beating Splice today means that they are all now at 10 and 7. Basically, whoever wins tomorrow is going to be in a very good spot. In fact, if Vitality and G2 play each other, and if Vitality win that game, no matter the result of the Splice game, Vitality will take the second spot and a bye all the way through to playoffs. This is because they have beaten Splice twice throughout the course of the split, so they would win the head-to-head if Splice were to win their game. What matches are we really looking at for tomorrow then? Of course, G2 Vitality is exciting, but my eyes fall onto Roccat. They play up against H2K, and they are currently at 8 wins. If they can win 1 more, no one can catch them. No one can challenge them for that playoff spot, and they would solidify themselves in 5th place in the standings. The bottom of the table, however, is a lot more messy. At the moment, we have 4 teams tied at 7 and 10, with a possibility of a 5-way tie at 7 and 11 tomorrow. Games like Unicorns of Love versus Misfits and Giants versus Splice will definitely help us see exactly how things are going to progress. Now, it's always important to remember that throughout the day, every game has counted, and you could see every second counted, every minute counted. Across the course of the rest of the split, both tomorrow and through quarterfinals and semis, every game will count. So make sure you tweet at us with that hashtag and tell us exactly who you're rooting for and why. We're going to hand it back across towards PGL. Guys, take it away.
Thank you very much, Medic. So we came into the week with only Splice and Fnatic locked in playoffs. Now we have Splice and Fnatic and Vitality in G2 locked in playoffs with 2 spots left. So the things that I took away from that, the things that we can say for certain, because a lot is dependent on if you win but X team loses to force the tiebreaker. But Vitality beat G2, they get the bye.
Yep.
They're in second place. And if Roccat beat H2K, they're in playoffs and they get that last spot. So there's a lot that can also still have to be decided. For instance, the Unicorns of Love versus Misfits match. For Unicorns of Love, it depends on a lot of factors. But Misfits, if they don't win that game, it is looking dire. And who would have thought that Misfits wouldn't make it to playoffs, Reckless?
Well, for us, it's a good thing that they might not, because I think we are probably only really looking at them as like a potential tough opponent in the best of 5 for the semifinals. So we are really hoping that they do not make it. We feel like they're just like the only team that can figure out a good enough plan to beat us, I would say. I think if we go up against any of the other teams, we should have the upper hand, including like the top 4 or top 3 other than us, I guess. So we would very much like Misfits not to make it, but for some reason they just haven't looked that great this split. I think they have like the best AD carries still, and their individual players are fine in some roles, but maybe not the others in some others.
Surprises me that you say
yeah.
the best AD carry still, because we looked at Hansama a lot. He was great in the beginning of the split, but he definitely didn't convince us in the last couple of weeks.
But I don't think that's his fault, though. Like, I feel like when you play against him, he just puts a lot of pressure on you, and he does it in a very smart way, where he doesn't really give you an possibility either to get back at him. Like, he's just a very good player in general, and I don't think he's playing bad by any means in their losses. I don't think he's the reason why they're losing. I think they have much bigger problems on the top side of the map. So from my perspective, it's very good for us if we don't go up against them, because I think we have a very big advantage in the bot lane otherwise if we play against pretty much anyone else. So if we were to avoid Hans and Mickey X, I think that would just be like the best situation for us.
Let me just jump in before I get your guys' 2 cents, because we do have the playoff picture so far. The only thing that is locked is Fnatic, because they are locked in the semi-finals, and there are a lot of possibilities. So I'm glad I already got your answer in that you would like to avoid Misfits, but this is also the teams that are vying for second place, and that could be in that other semi-final. And the question I want to ask you guys is, how do you see these teams that are up for the second place translating into best of 5s? Let's start with the G2 as we see it now. How can that team do in those best of 5s?
I honestly don't think that this lineup, with the way that they're playing right now, can translate anything into the best of 5 system, because I think most of their strength last year came from Mithy and Sven, and from Trick actually being a smart jungle. That's something like people always underestimate our Trick. He was bad individually in some cases in terms of summer split, but he was still extremely smart and knew how to play against other opponents. I think that's an advantage that Junglers doesn't have, who's individually really good. But I think he struggles against smart opponents who figure him out instead. And yeah, I really don't think that G2 has any kind of strength in the best of 5 right now.
Reckless?
I would agree. I think G2 is probably the worst of the 3 that we're looking at right now. I think Splice are a bit overhyped. Like, people were really hyping them up before this week, and now they lost today. But I mean, as you said before, like maybe it wasn't
Technically won the game.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't supposed to be a game they lost, right? But I still feel like they were a bit overhyped, and they shouldn't have had all like those expectations that were built up for pretty much no reason. So I think still Vitality is the better team. I think Splice is up there though, like definitely top 3. But I think Vitality has the edge over them.
That surprises me, because I think if you'd ask these guys,
I think Splice are better.
Yeah. So
I think
especially in best of 5.
why is Splice better, and then you can answer us why you think Vitality is better.
I just think like generally Splice, they're the smarter team, and typically in best of 5s, the smarter team ends up winning. I think Vitality have shown they actually can't cleanly snowball games against the best teams. They can do it against some of the bottom ones, but I think today was a good example of them having far superior early game draft, getting a 50 CS lead and an early turret in the bot lane, and then still actually messing up around fights on the top side when they shouldn't have been able to actually lose out there. They also leave, like in this case, they actually allow Odamne to get 2 early kills on a Shen instead of swapping into his lane earlier. So I think they do make a lot of mistakes when it comes to snowballing, and I think this, like, had Splice just been able to close out this game, we would have been sitting here saying, oh, you know what, Splice, second place, looks solid, second best team. Not Fnatic, but second best team. At least that's the way I look at it.
Yeah,
So
I'd like to just hear Maurice's.
Okay, so from my point of view, it's like this. I think Splice as a team, they're really easy to figure out. I think if you look and play against them, I think the way that they operate and play the map is really transcribed before the game even starts. You exactly know what they're going to do. I think they have no X factor that basically brings this like playmaking into the game. Whereas I think on Vitality, I think their game plans, at least through Yamato Ken, should be like smart and like should be there. But I think in terms of X factor, I think they have a couple of players who can actually make the clutch play and actually make this deciding thing happen within the early or late game. I think that's an advantage that Splice doesn't have because they're so meta dependent that they operate like completely towards it, and you always know what they're going to bring.
But I think the X factor and, you know, the individuals who can make the big play, it's great in best of one, 100%. I will take what I consider the better actual team in a best of 5 and the smarter team, which I think Splice will be. And I think when you talk about X factors, like, to me, Kobe has already shown if you get to the late game and they build around him, he can carry against a team like
So this
Vitality.
is again where it comes in, the theoretical, but in...
every time.
Yeah, because we do say for best of ones, in best of ones, the better team should win, but it doesn't always happen because best of ones. But for me, it's just as controversial to be like, well, then certainly a team that knows the basics will win a best of 5, because clutch is also very important. Yeah, that is true.
What I mean by X Factor is not just like this playmaking, but it's also like, I do think that Vitality is completely aware of what the meta is. I think they know. I think they're able to play it, but I think they actually go this extra. I don't want to call them macro geniuses, but I think they are. they're the only team that can actually, besides Fnatic, I think right now that can play the meta, but can also like do other things besides that. I think that's something that Splice can't do, and G2 for sure can't do.
All right, final point on that. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Amazing actually. I think Splice is the kind of team that they play semi-solid, right? Like they don't have insane macro or insane micro. They just kind of play good, decent, I would say, right? And I think I think that it's not a beneficial thing in a best of 5. I feel like in a best of 5, you really need to be sort of next level, like sort of an X factor, right? Like you need some sort of clutch player or strategy that might like catch the opponent off guard. But I feel like Splice is just such an easy team to read into. Like they always kind of do the same thing, always kind of draft towards the same thing. So for a team like ourselves, I feel like it'd be much better to play against Splice than Vitality, because I think we would never ever drop 3 Nexuses against Splice. But against Vitality, we might drop like 1 or 2 in surprise, and then we're in a tough position.
See,
so
but
I would much rather play Splice in that regard.
I get that from your point of view.
Yeah, but as a team power, maybe Splice is better than Vitality. But I'm judging from my own perspective.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Who would I want to play?
Yeah.
And I would much rather play G2, obviously. But then if not G2, Splice, because I think for us, it would just be like, we're just better individually and as a team than Splice, and they will not do anything crazy. So we just play the game slow and we're going to win eventually.
Yep, and that's why I think, like, for you guys, I 100% agree. Splice needs to bring something unique.
Yeah,
but
and I don't think they have the player capacity to do that. Meanwhile, Vitality actually does. Like, they have a really, really good mid laner, and I think, for example, if Caps goes against Niski, we have like an already like winning condition already there, right? Meanwhile, against Jisuki, we actually have problems even in some cases. So
this actually reminds me a little bit of last split, where G2, they were more afraid of Fnatic, because especially like back in spring when you guys were playing like lane swaps and like these kind of different strategies, than they were of like Misfits, who they were like, Misfits are basically just gonna play standard.
Discount G2.
And we play standard better than they do. So they were never afraid of them, but they were afraid of Fnatic, because Fnatic would do unique things.
The random stuff.
And that's
you
the way
can't prepare for that either. You just kind of have to act on the fly. And I think
you kind of
only
guess
a very
a little
few
bit.
Teams and maybe even a few players in the history of League of Legends have been really good at acting on the fly. Like most teams just work out of preparation. And I think Misfits are a clear example of a team that just work off of preparation. And as soon as they go up against a team that do crazy stuff, like we've seen in a lot of these best of ones, they have no idea what to do.
Who's that guy in your team? Who's that guy who can see those opportunities?
I think Soaz is probably the best one at seeing this random stuff happening in the game. Like he's really good at calling, like enemy could be doing Nash now, and then we blue orb, and it's like 4K, you know. No one else would ever see this coming, but he's really good at seeing these kind of things. And I think secondly, it's probably me. I've been enough for a long time now, so I've kind of seen everything that can happen in a game, and I try to like be aware of like all the possibilities. But I think he's probably the best at it, and then me. But I think we just have so much experience in comparison to like a team like Vitality. So even if we were to go up against them and they have all these X factors, we would still be fine because we have enough knowledge to look out for.
Well, that leads into something that's coming up next, because I want to move on to hit you. I want to move on and hit you with some Shoxin statements, which you can agree with or disagree with or argue about. That would actually be preferred.
Okay.
Let's see. First up, no team looks like they can come close to challenging Fnatic for the championship. Now, I don't think this one is extremely controversial. I just think that the way it's put, that no team could even come close, is possibly not completely true. But the way that you're speaking now about the strength you have over the possible opponents does make me feel like you actually believe this.
Well, as I said before, I feel like the only team that could actually beat us in a best of 5 is Misfits, which is really weird because they're last place and people are probably thinking I'm trolling, right?
And they beat you twice, yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like Misfits are the only team that actually like keep up with us in terms of macro. And I don't know why they're dropping all these random games. Maybe they're not taking it serious. Maybe they're not taking the preparation as well as they should. But whenever we have played against them and we do it in scrims, it just feels like they could potentially take us down 3 times on stage. So if we're able to avoid them, then I would say Vitality is probably the only other one that could surprise us in a best of 5. Otherwise, I feel like we should be more than fine. If we keep up, you know, the good work that we've had so far, I think we should be more than fine in our semifinals and not repeat last year's mistake.
Maurice?
The weird part, I actually think that Vitality, for sure, I think that Misfits could potentially upset them. I mean, as in like, you know, the probability. But I also actually think that of all the teams that are still there, I think Schalke is a team that like, supposedly, if they actually get their macro to the level that they should be at, which they still haven't
They play
shown.
too standard.
Yeah,
I actually agree on Schalke though. I think Schalke would be my third. If I said a team that could potentially beat us in best 5, it would be Schalke. But I think they're just like too off individually.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't seem like, you know, when you see the name, it doesn't feel like that's the guy actually playing. It feels kind of weird when you watch, but it just feels like they're not the same players that you expect them to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's a shame because a team like Schalke should be theoretically like top
Oh, we
4.
tried to say that for 9 weeks. Sadly,
I mean, they're
it's
still
not
not
there.
out. And in actuality, tomorrow, their game versus you guys
And they
could
could
very
get
well
6 and
decide.
then they would be seated against
If
us.
they,
in a
yeah, because if they
final,
beat
so.
Fnatic, they probably still have to play a tiebreaker for number 6. But if they win that, obviously they're in. The way things are being played right now and the information we have from Best of 1, then no one should be able to, like, based on what we're seeing
But then
now,
we think
beat
about
Fnatic.
last year, and I think that's also why Reckless is so careful, because last year in summer
Exactly.
it
we
was
flopped
Misfits that took you down.
in summer, yeah.
So
But I also think I'm a bit biased because all the teams I'm mentioning have like pretty good bot lanes, and I feel like that's where a lot of my like fear comes in. I guess fear is not the right word, but so you get what I mean, right? Like I feel like against most of the other teams, it's just really easy games because we have like so much better bot lane than the other teams, and I think bot lane is really impactful right now in the meta. If you get like the champions that can back it up, like maybe not Estral, but even in our Estral games, I've been doing just fine, and we've had like leads in the bot lane. So I feel like it's just easier games against other teams that doesn't have these bot lanes. But for example, against someone like Hans or Upset or even Mine Trupax, who have been doing pretty decently, I would say, I feel like it's just much harder, and we can't really get this like winning condition off of the bot lane anymore.
well, on the topic of good players in the bot lane, my next shocking statement is statistically Reckless is the MVP, but in reality, his team makes him look good.
Is that a bad thing?
Well, I don't know. You guys should discuss what it means.
I mean, I think 100% his team is part of making him look good. I think Caps especially, a lot of early in the split, when everything was involving him in the early game, actually gave a lot of freedom to Hylissang and Reckless.
Well,
to
the
then
Fisho, obviously I meant you could make an argument for other players like Jizuke and say he's
for
doing it
MVP
all on his
award.
own. Yes. It's, you're not supposed to like roll over and die and just accept the statement.
No, I was going to explain why I
It's not
agree with the
necessarily-
statement.
But do you feel like it's all statistics though? Because I know a lot of people are saying, you know, like, well, it's been like this forever, right? But people are always saying that I'm just like a statistics player and I don't actually do
KDA
anything
player?
other than, you know, get the numbers up.
I mean,
But is that actually true though? Because when I play, I feel like a lot of times, in pretty much actually every game, I have like one moment where I'm really clutching it, you know, like really making a difference within the game. And that is not something that numbers can justify. It's just the fact that I am who I am and I make the decision that I make, you know?
People are also actually, so whenever people mention, oh, he's a KDA player, I see that response instantly from 5 other players being, of 5.
Yeah,
being
no,
like,
I mean,
oh no, he's in the front
yeah.
line. He's actually,
Yeah.
he's actually playing aggressive. I think
I
in
was
the
just curious
past,
about your opinion. If you actually feel like I'm an impact player, or if I actually just, still play kind of safe, just
I
take
think
it slow.
season 5, you were not much of an impact player
I agree.
compared to now.
If I was an impact player season 5, I think we would have made it to World's Finals probably. Had a chance there. We were insane as a team back then, and I think the reason why we lost the semifinals was because we had no other choice than to play through top lane.
Yep.
So if I was really good in season 5, then we would have had a diversity within our game plan, and we couldn't just play through top lane. And against Smeb, it wouldn't work, right?
Does that
Smeb
still
is
bother
good
you?
enough. Yeah, I mean, it really bothers me because it was my chance to win
opposite
Worlds,
origin right there.
Absolutely.
and I screwed it up by not stepping up when it really mattered. Like I was just chilling that entire split. Like I'm gonna win every game anyway, so why would I bother changing anything, right? But then when it really mattered, we couldn't play through top lane anymore, and that's when they needed me,
Yeah.
Yep.
And I didn't practice to be there when it was needed.
Does it bother you that
So it bothers me, yeah.
people? Yeah, but does it bother you that people keep saying that? And I think, despite the statistics and all that, I think everyone who's honest with himself knows how good of a player Reckless is. If you look at a historical career, and there would be moments where it wasn't as good, like in 2015. But you can't honestly say that in the last 2 years you've been a bad AD carry, right? So does it bother
think
you when people go and say that still?
I think 2015 I was fine still. Like maybe I wasn't an impact player, but I was really fine. But I think my worst split was probably 2016. I think I was not playing well, and I was really not an impact player either. It was
kind of
just like-
transition year. You tried to be it, but you couldn't.
I was just straight up mediocre.
You're trying to shot call,
I was
I
not
believe,
better
then,
than
too?
anyone. I wasn't worse than anyone. I was just there. You could barely see me in the games. I was not making an impact
To be
whatsoever.
fair, we
within the
barely
team.
saw Fnatic as a team.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like
really
that's
worked.
very, mirrored by how I was as a player. So I would say 2016 was my worst year for sure. 2014 I was really fine. 2015 I think I just took things for granted. Maybe like I thought we would be successful in elements regardless of what I did. So I wasn't really trying to change things. And same goes for the summer split. But then last year I was much better, I think, than I've ever showed before. And then this year is even better. So
TLDR,
going
you
back to
deserve
the
the spring
MVP?
split MVP?
yeah, I think if I should get it at some point, it should be now. Like I don't think I deserved it last summer, but I think last summer there were no good players other than me, so I
No good
understand that
teams
I got
either,
it.
yeah.
But I think now I'm really smashing it in comparison to what I did last summer. So if I got it back then, I should really get it now. But I would understand if you gave it to someone like Caps, because I think Caps is also like
That's a big discussion
Next level,
point,
you know.
actually.
There's definitely going to be people voting for Caps as well.
Yeah.
So
for
who's
sure.
the third name? What about Perks? What about Jizuke? What about maybe Hansama? Let me know.
So it's really tough. I think that Perks, like, given that he basically won a lot of games for G2 in the beginning of the split, should be the third option. But then again, like, they look so bad now, and he's basically inting in a lot of games that I think the third option for me would right now actually be Jizuke or Kobe.
But I don't think an MVP player should be an impact player. Like, for example, when we were doing our MVP list, I'm not going to say who
Yeah.
we voted for. Well, actually, people will see it anyway, so might
Yeah,
as well.
they
Yeah.
will
Okay,
see it.
so we voted for players that we thought were not impact players, but actually like valuable players changing the
nature of-
team, you know?
yeah.
Because, for example, like, someone like Upset, you could put an MVP as MVP if you're considering MVP to be an impact player, because Upset wins a lot of games for Schalke, but he also loses a lot of games.
So
And I think
something
Perks
that I've
goes in the
heard,
same category.
something that I heard among the analysts is you can't take the players from teams that aren't performing.
I think you
it's
can.
tough.
I think you
depending
can,
on
but
how
they have
good that
to,
individual player is.
win
Yeah, it has to
games
be
and
unreal.
not int in losses. But
Yeah.
for example, Perks and Upset are players that do really well when they're winning, and they're the ones losing the game when they're losing. So I don't think you could give someone like that an MVP, because without him, they might as well also have had as many wins, because their play would have been consistent instead.
Final
You know?
name. Amazing.
There's a really like similar argument like in a lot of sports where it's either making your teammates better or if you're basically the shining light in games.
Yeah,
So
it's always the discussion.
And that's
right?
why we voted for Kasing, because we felt like Kasing was enabling that team to play in a specific way, and no one could replace him and do the same thing.
okay,
So we
that makes
gave
sense.
it-
But that's
Guessing
also
is first.
because you guys know from behind the scenes his impact on communication? or
Yeah,
just
that
in-game
too, but
play?
also just from like stage games and the Pixies playing. Like, I think no one else could have played the champions that he was playing and not forced the team, but allowed the team to play in the way that they were playing. Like, for example, let's say their support were just a melee player like everyone else in LCS, and then they were as bad as they were in the beginning, they wouldn't have won a single game. They would have lost every game because they would have never had late game. But because he was playing Janna, Cillian, they were winning their lanes. Like, they smashed us in at least one of our games that we played against them. And then they always had the late game because he was playing really well on his e-girl,
Yeah.
you know. So I think you couldn't replace that guy, and that's
Yeah,
why I
I
would
agree.
give him or put him up as an MVP candidate.
I think it's definitely fair. We need to move on, but it's on the same topic because we also asked you to give us your personal all-pro team for the ELCS Spring Split without any Fnatic players, because that is the rule. So let's take a look. If you also put Kasing there, I'm actually not sure about that. Yes, you did. You did.
Yeah, I did.
So Wonder top lane, Xerxes, Jizuke, Hansama, Kasing. All very interesting. We just heard Kasing, so let's start from top to bottom. Wonder if he did prove to me at least a lot
That was
in
a
that
big
last game
argument
versus
backstage,
G2.
by the way.
The thing is, everyone was hyping him right back before, and I was saying that he's not as good as people are saying, which I still stand for. I don't think he's as good as people make him out to be, judging off his stats and all that. But I think he's still probably the best top laner after our own top laners. I think the others are just not good at all.
Also,
Like I think Weepo is really good. Like Weepo is a really good player already, and he only played 2 games, but every scrim we play, and he's very like what do you call it? It's very
Poker?
yeah. There's a better word, but whatever. He's just like very into the team already. You know? He's not just
Integrated.
sitting at the outskirts chilling. He's actually like making a lot of plans for the
Actively.
team, shot calling. You know, he's doing all these things that you could expect from a veteran player already.
Okay.
So I think other than our top laners, Wunder is the best top laner because everyone else is pretty bad, which is the sad truth. But this is just how it is.
All right, fair. I want to look at the jungle because I know Amazing might agree with you because you actually called out Xerxes as most improved jungler and maybe even best jungler at certain times in the last couple of weeks.
So the argument for Xerxes is basically like that. I think he has been the most consistent jungler out of like at least like recently. I think even in the beginning of the split, he kind of like obviously looked bad in the early game, but I think that was more of a team issue. And the better he became, the better Splice became. So for me, it's more or less he's basically a safe choice for first place because every other jungler has these on-off moments where one game they're completely inting and one game they're carrying. Like
Xerxes is so consistent, always performs, no matter what.
So-
Plays every champion in the game. One of the few junglers we have in Europe that plays cheese as well. I mean, you could call it cheese, but
Yeah,
for him, it's
strategy.
actually just like a
Ivan and
strategy,
stuff.
right?
It's life.
Like Warwick and all these picks that we saw last year. He still has this in his pocket,
Yeah.
and he can still put it out at any time. And I think that's just, you know, like he's just way up there.
Also benefits
Right now.
that Lee Sin has not been meta in forever. One of the champion
One-
team
one-
refused.
Lee
to
Sin-
play.
Lee
I
Sin
played
at
it
least.
solo queue without Grease Smite, and I could not play the game. So
it's not that
gonna be
bad. It's,
I think I'm just too
It's
bad.
not
maybe, but
there.
It's hard to
Thursday
play.
likes that because he doesn't want to play Lee Sin.
He's great on Zach. He's amazing.
He's really
Yeah,
good
he
at
is.
tank
You know,
jungle.
Actually
actually,
love
last year we
Champions.
scouted him on his Smurf, and he had most played Lee Sin. So he was practicing it.
Oh.
Never on stage.
Called out.
Never on stage.
Never
though.
played on
He was
stage.
practicing.
Who's the best jungler if Lee Sin becomes top meta tomorrow?
Wait.
Maurice, Amazing Schneider?
Broxah maybe. Broxah is a good Lee Sin.
Broxah, I think.
I mean,
but
Jankos would benefit from that as well.
Jankos Broxah. I think, like at least what I for my top 3, I think it's Xerxes, Broxah, and Jankos. Like I'm not catching up the order, but Xerxes first. So like for me, it's just like these junglers, like they bring some kind of consistency, and that's something that like I think so many people undervalue in junglers where. They're like, oh, he ganks early. He's a good jungler. He does this, you know, like he makes this plays. It's so unimportant what kind of plays you make in general. The important part is to basically be a backbone for your team and enable them to play at a certain level every game. And if you can't do that, I don't think you're a great jungler. And I think that's where a lot of EU junglers, even though Joko, for example, like still like kind of fits that, he's not really elevating. Like
The entire
as in, like
game, I
he's
feel
not
like.
consistently elevating. He's one game elevating completely, and one game just eliminating completely.
Oh, okay.
But I think also that's just due to poor laners around him.
I mean, yeah, true.
Yeah, you kind of,
Like-
you can't
But you get
really
my-
put it all on the shoulders.
No,
of
No,
the
no,
junglers,
but you get
right?
my argument. You know, that's
Yeah,
like,
I get it.
All right, cool. I don't think rather that there's a lot of discussion about the other two. We've mentioned Hansama
I mean,
already.
there is for mid.
Oh, for mid, yeah.
Yeah, Jizuke. I mean, so a lot of people are gonna have perks.
I would have
sitting
put
there.
perks, but he's
Yeah,
been
true.
inting for like 4 weeks straight now. So,
Yeah, so recent.
The whole
recent
problem with
history.
perks is the last few weeks.
Yeah.
Because
And I mean, that's
2
important because
weeks?
that is
It's
the
only
race
been
for
2 weeks. I
playoffs.
thought
yeah,
it's been like 4 weeks.
It's been like 5 games now. Yeah.
yeah,
It feels
I
like
think-
forever. He's just inting
So-
every game.
So can you find less bad games from Jizuke, TLDR,
Yeah.
then?
Yeah, I actually think Jizuke has had very few bad games this split.
Why do you think Perks has bad games, though? I don't understand why he has bad games. He's a good player, right? Like, no one can take that away from him.
Fantastic.
So at
And he
least
I
should
think
have
he
a
might
lot
be
of
a little
knowledge from the last 2 years.
So what I think.
Yeah.
Why would he be in a slump? Like,
What I think. The
something
issue
going
is-
on within the team, maybe? Or
if you look
Potentially.
if you look from the outside, like at least like in the last couple of weeks, I think G2 has like obviously been struggling as a team. They have been really, really bad on this patch ever since like the vision changes. And what I think his position, like point of view is right now, like, okay, my bot lane is really not
probably
integrated.
stressed, right?
Yeah,
Like, really stressed out.
and he
when he's
feels like
playing.
he has to make that play in order for them to win because he always knows that his bot lane is going to fall behind at some point because that's been happening every game of the split, honestly. And I think he feels so pressured to carry the top side of the map, especially with Wunder now playing a lot of tanks besides today, obviously, that he's like the sole carry in the team. That's in his mind, at least.
which is why I think, even though today there's a lot of bad things for G2, at least towards the end, the fact it became a lot more about Wonder specifically could benefit G2 in the long run, because it seemed very clear that Perks felt like if he didn't carry, no one would carry. In the last, like since 8.4, basically, where it went downhill from them. So I hope that they understand that they need to keep trying to play some carries top lane for this current lineup to work, because otherwise it's all on Perks, and clearly that didn't work for them in 2
it's
weeks.
a token for Perks and for a good player that even when he's not on the list and the player being talked about, he's still being talked about.
I mean, he's such a big name. You have to talk about him when he's not on the list.
Right. Well,
Who would
we
you
need
guys
to
put
move
on AD carry if it wasn't Hans?
never mind.
I was just going to ask about
absolutely.
Hans, because I know a lot of people are not very impressed with him, right? But I am, so it becomes like an easy choice for me, but maybe for other. I don't know what people are putting, other than myself, obviously.
Kobe would be my
Because I'm not even putting Kobe in my top 3, so...
He would be my choice.
Yeah, okay.
Based on everything, when it comes to how Splice have been winning games, especially in the late game, it's been a lot about setting him up to succeed, and I think he's been playing teamfights really well. So I would put him as mine. I think Hans loves his early start, praised him, called him the best AD carry when I was flaming Reckless the first 2 weeks. But the last few weeks, laning phase is still good from him, but he's had a lot of teamfights when they play Ezreal, and they rely a lot on him on 2 items, where he then, with everything available, gets caught out, dies in a fight, or dies just before the fight, and then the team just they don't get ahead from it, and everything just slows down from his phase. They get outscaled. So he wouldn't be my number 1 choice, even
Yours
if I
would be
actually
Kobe.
think that he is
Would yours be Kobe?
individually. Yeah, mine would be
Is
Kobe.
Kobe Danish?
He is Danish.
Oh.
But aren't we all in the
LCS,
EULCS one way or the
For
other?
the amount of times we see that sausage video played, I would think we're all Danes.
We also watch the entire show, so we see it many times.
That's true. Okay, let's move on. Thank you very much for delivering us your all-pro team. But let's take a look at the matches and what these players can do in the final day of the regular season. The schedule will come up in just a second. G2 versus Vitality, we already touched on it. Direct battle for second place. If Vitality win, they lock that second place. If G2 win, then it comes to tiebreakers. Then Roccat versus H2K. If Roccat win, they're in playoffs. So maybe let's look at Giants versus Splice, for instance, because Giants is a team that we don't actually talk about that much, and they're always there, and they're still in the race.
They're always like I don't know. Whenever I think of Giants, I think they should lose every game. Basically, they're playing almost. You know, like
But why?
because they have so like. Okay, so in a lot of wins, and this may sound like I'm hating on them, but I think in a lot of wins, they honestly just benefit of others playing bad. So it's like the enemy team is trolling, that's why they're winning. It's not like the Giants just playing clean macro or they're playing clean individually. I think in a lot of wins...
but a lot of
I don't
teams
think
are
they have
then
any macro at all.
trolling.
Yeah,
I think they just play the game, and
so like
their I mean, their individual players are
stuff.
the reason why they win games. Like sometimes, as I said before, like Joker goes off and wins them a game. Sometimes Ruin won them a game beforehand. I think the problem that they have is that they don't really have like a carry now that Betsy is not really carrying games anymore. I feel like Steelback is actually better than people give him credit for, but not good enough. So people say he's like the worst AD we have seen in a long time, right? Like oftenly, I just hear that people just trash talk Steelback straight up.
He's had really
when I don't
also.
think it's true. I think he's more than fine. I think he's like same level as a lot of other AD carries that were even like considered good for last year. I think like Samox, for example. I think he's just as good as Samox, if not even better. But he's not good enough to carry a game, and Betsy's not carrying either, so they don't win against the good teams because they just can't match up. Like, for example, today I felt like they should have done a lot more than they did when they had Rice, Sarah Khan, Shogun, Sejuani. There's good composition that they got drafted from their coach, and they didn't do anything really with it at all.
I think just one of the reasons also we talk so little about Giants now is because they got most of their wins in the first few weeks. They were obviously 5-1 because they were one of the first teams.
True.
They were one of the first teams among most.
With Rocket, right?
Giants.
They're 2-9.
I mean, Giants and Rocket were the teams that were like picking up so many wins.
Wait, so they're 2-9 since then?
They've lost a lot of games since then compared to my one, but they were one of the first teams to realize that you should just draft full late game teamfight comms. They were easier to play than the 1-3-1 split push that the other teams were trying to do. They got to late game every time, and then they just smacked people in teamfights.
That was more about Betsy, though, wasn't it? Like with Asir.
He carried really hard in this year. He carried really hard in this year.
That's something we were actually looking out for today, that we were putting him on a non-late game champion, and then we didn't really care too much about Steelback because we knew, like, once it really gets down to it, 40 minutes, 45 minutes into the game, Steelback won't carry that team fight. but we were scared kind of Betsy
Yeah,
doing
Betsy
it.
could.
So.
He did it.
I hate to cut you guys short, but we do have to move on. We've been talking for a very long time, and I think
Sorry.
that is because it was so interesting. I actually learned a lot about practically every
Feels like
team.
a podcast in here.
Yeah, it's like a podcast with cameras. Oh, we do want
Oh, we
that.
don't do that with
We do
cameras.
want
No,
that.
don't give them any hope here now.
Alrighty, well, that's it for us soon. But over in North America, LCS Academy is underway with CLG versus Optic Gaming. And if you missed any of the EU LCS tonight, be sure to tune in for our rebroadcast after the show in Los Angeles, so you can watch League of Legends all through the night. But that was all from us here in Berlin. Thank you guys so much for the wonderful discussion, and we'll see you all back here tomorrow for the final day of the regular season. See you then.
Ciao.
Tschüssi.
Tschüssi.
The German?
Yeah.
Be careful, teleport's near to complete. There's the quickness bomb skew, get the oh! That's a big Megadar, and Upset is not going to be feeling too happy after that one. Yeah, mix that one up, and they go once more, trying to get the ganks off inside the brush. Chachi falls. They're just giving ground here, nothing they can do. Systematic destruction into H2K. The playoff dream is alive. And they're two-manning this. Here he goes! Before